Very, very good. So I'm Tahir Sultan. I'm presenting a presentation for the case study one. And the topic of the case study is the G20 and the economic and financial crisis. What on earth is globalization about protests during a meeting, Argentina, November 2018. So the introduction of G20 is about the group of 20 finance minister and the central bank governors were established in 1999 to bring together important industrialized and developing economies to discuss key issues in the global economy on a regular basis. So the G20 was created as a response both to the financial crisis as of late 1990s and the growing recognition that key emerging market countries represented in the G8 were not adequately included in the core of global economic discussion and governance. So the inaugural meeting of G20 took place in Berlin on 15 to 16 December 1999, hosted by the German and Canadian finance ministers. And the G20 is made up of the finance ministers and the central bank governors of 19 countries such as Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, the UK, US, and European Union 20 member G20. So the history of this case study is about that on November 30 to 1 December 2018, the world leaders from the G20 countries representing 85% of the world output met in the Buenos Aires, Argentina. They came together in the shadow of the Brexit and the US-China trade war. So the first question of the case study was, what are the key arguments of the anti-globalization? So anti-globalization protesters. So the protesters raised voice in public against the West gain has been at the expense of developing countries. Demonstrators say these countries should forgive the debts of the poorest nations. Generally speaking, protesters believe that the global institutions and agreements, World Trade Organization, World Bank, IMG 28 and G20, undermine local decision-making methods. Many governments and free trade institutions are seen as acting for the good of translation or multinational corporations. Example, Microsoft, Unilever. The already low share of global income of the poorest people in the world has dropped even more in the past decade, but in the developed world, not everyone has been a winner. The freedom granted by the globalization had to have led to increased insecurity in the workplace. Manual workers, in particular, are under threat as companies shift their production line overseas as low wage economies. Dominguez, along with a thousand of others who attended the march, protested against the G20's failure to adequately address a broad range of issues, including climate change, poverty, and hunger. So the thousands of protesters outside the summit, the G20 in 20 in Afghanistan, they gather and they march a protest, and the protesters they have shared their point of view and they record their protest against the globalization. This some of the protesters they have shared their point of view like this G20 won't talk about migration, austerity, and the adjustment measures you are facing here in Argentina and that are being applied in Europe, said Daniel Catalino, Secretary General of ATE Capital and Argentina Trade Union. They won't talk about poverty. They won't talk about the climate change. They won't talk about how to improve the quality of life. They are going to talk about how to divide the wealth of the majority of the wealth of the nation. The circus is that kicked off in Buenos Aires today isn't tackling improving the lives of the vulnerable or the oppressed in this country, said Carlos Ortega, General Secretary of the Social Security Union Secretary. So a 54-year-old factory worker, Patricia Silvino, protesters said, we are against the policies of the G20, which are tearing the world apart. In Argentina and the rest of the world, there are lack of education, food, and work. Because of the policy they are over there discussing. So the protesters they show that how the globalization has been affected their lives and the group of the G20 leaders they are sitting here for making the progress good for the multinational companies, not for the making the policies that will gain them, will remove the poverty, climate change, and other topics. So the next question is that how could these protesters affect the operations of multinational companies? As we have seen that due to the free trade policies and due to the increase in the globalization, the US-based multi companies all over the world has multinational companies increase in wealth and shift of business towards developing countries. So this is threat to the local culture and the local domestic businesses. So that because the multinational companies they are reaching capital so they can produce so they can take market they can move their production facilities into the lower developing countries and they ship their other things to the other countries all parts of the world. The US multinational companies has been increased from 7,000 to 65,000 since 19 1990. So, as we can see that in 1997, in 1970, global trade was 13 billion dollars per year, which was rising to 1.8 billion dollars today because of the globalization and the presence of US-based multinational companies all over the world. So, what happened is that uh, the primary influence on a business are political, economic, social, and technological protest of G20, the effect operation of multinational companies by changing the relation between country, lose sales, and customers don't want to buy international products. They prefer to buy domestic products because of unstable economic and political environment. Due to the globalization, they impacted a lot of the people in the home country and lot of the people in other country. For example, the developed countries they oversees their operation in the developing countries and in the developing countries they increase in the poverty level in the developed countries because of the lesser jobs and the people migration for the workers they are also shift from the developing countries to developed countries. So the developed countries where they have they produce less jobs while in the developing countries they have more jobs but with the low wages and the forced labors and this all free trade has been given the multinational companies to rise their businesses. But the protest against these they are in uh, against the protest of multinational companies. So the massive protest in G20 Buenos Aires has given rise to highlighting the impacts of globalization on general public. The people criticize the policies of multinational companies and governments in free trade agreements and foreign business operations has given increase in poverty, global warming, climate change, and threat to the local culture and diversity, while multinational companies are facing challenges to counter these protests. For example, people are increasingly returning to local and regional culture custom to increase diversity and promoting the local culture and products. So, what has the increasing tension between the countries? Increasing tension between the countries will lead to the decrease in the trade between the countries. So that will affect the globalization and that has a consequent impact on the multinational companies because of the four factors that we discussed above is the political, economic, social, and technological between the governments and multinational companies. So, as we can study in the question one is that the problem with the protesters they are protesting is that the the role of governments and the world leader G20, they are just only working on the behalf of the multinational companies, while the people they are against that move because they are not getting much. But the rich they have the capital and the multinational companies they are improving every day, while the people they are also suffering from not only in terms of the money but in terms of climate change and the decrease in the diversity and culture. So the question three is about how could the G20 do a better marketing job in communicating its view to the general audience. So G20 is the global platform that has diversify its viewpoints all over the world, and we represent 85% of the world output, can do a better marketing job by highlighting the key aspects that world is facing today, such as making strong international relations with other countries and decreases the political tension between countries, challenges to remove poverty, addressing climate change to help make better world better for future generations. So the marketing communication and channels use different marketing campaigns. They can do marketing advertisement. They can increase the awareness among the people how uh, how G20 can play its role in making the world a better place. So marketing communication channel focuses on a way business communicates a message to desired market and the market in the general. So a marketing communication tool can be anything from advertisement, person selling, direct marketing, sponsorship, communication, power generation, the creation of single information space. As we all know that today the world is a global due to the internet penetration all over the world. So the information is spreading at a very high speed, a very fast rate. So the broadcasting is an important point to highlight the major points that in the G20 to spread to the audience, and the creative advertisement for better understanding of audience, understand the problem and respond in effectively way. The capacity for contest among key media will also contribute to better understanding between nations and to raise public awareness about the culture aspects of each country. Through the exchange of information through international news agencies, it is possible not only to learn more about each other, but working together will drive to the path of direct communication without third-party sources. So the broadcasting, the agencies, the union labors, they all can present their point of view to the media platform so that everyone can understand to a 360-degree point of view, and they can have moved towards creation of a multipolar world in which we will be free access to different points of view. The media can play a very important role in objective and complete news coverage for reaching the message effectively and positively. As we can see that G20 meetings and the agenda of the G20 can be very important in very important in highlighting the major problems in the world. If they are communicated effectively through the marketing, that will have a positive impact all over the world and all over the people, so they can support the cause that the G20, the 85% of the world leaders, they have to be in the world, so that will be a peaceful and progressive global economy. So thank you very much.